Hello, good afternoon from Dubai. Welcome to this webinar being presented by MEED, which looks into the challenges and opportunities that the nascent green hydrogen sector offers in the Middle East and North Africa region. My name is Jennifer Aguinaldo. I am MEED's Energy and Technology Editor. I've been covering this sector for the past several years. I started covering the renewable energy sector in 2019. And I do remember in July 2020 when Saudi Arabia announced the Neom green hydrogen project. And that project reached financial close against all odds in May this year. It's also important to know that yesterday, Fertiglobe, the Abu Dhabi petrochemicals company, has announced completing the first shipment of an internationally certified green ammonia to India. The green ammonia will be used to produce soda ash, which is a component in making laundry detergent. But before anything else, I'd like to, for those of you who have joined us, a webinar organized by MEED for the first time, or if you don't know MEED, we've been providing news, insights, and analysis since 1957. We have a business intelligence platform that covers the entire Middle East and Africa as well. Whatever data and information or insights that I'm presenting this afternoon and much else besides will be part of a premium intelligence report that is coming out shortly with the same title, MEA Hydrogen Projects 2024. For those of you looking to engage the stakeholders and understand how this nascent sector might impact your business, this could be a valuable business development tool for you. All right, so hydrogen, it's a massive topic. There have been a staggering amount of projects announced in the Middle East and Africa region over the past 2 to 3 years. If COP27 is anything to go by, then we are expecting more project announcements in COP28, which is just 9 days away. Jordan already said that it's expecting to sign 5 MOUs on green hydrogen during the 12-day COP event here in Dubai. Okay, so green hydrogen is not new. Its industrial application started in the 1960s, I believe. So it's a kind of hydrogen we call gray today, which is produced through a process called steam methane reformation from fossil fuels, and which produces greenhouse gas emissions. So the new thing is the process of greening that entire process. So 50% of the existing hydrogen goes into fertilizer production and refineries, among others. What's new is the process of greening, or making that process blue by capturing the GHG emitted through the process when it's coming from natural gas, or by using large-scale renewable energy projects to power the electrolysis process, which splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. And the hydrogen output is then, based on the plants that we have seen in the region, will further be processed and converted into derivatives, primarily ammonia, which will then be shipped to demand centers like in Southeast Asia and Europe for applications that cover the existing applications of gray ammonia, as well as for broader applications such as in shipping, more remotely heating buildings, as well as for power generation. There are a few power plants, let's say utility operators in Southeast Asia, that aims to start co-firing ammonia starting next year as the net energy transition takes hold. A major factor behind acceleration of hydrogen projects activity in the region is the declining cost in solar PV. So easily, the region as we have seen, the largest GCC projects, solar PV projects, the region can easily produce solar power at uh, uh, a third of the average global cost of producing them, mainly because there's high irrigation levels, the scale of projects here, as well as the political will, basically, to build a renewable energy projects and the superior sovereign credit rating of the companies behind these projects. So whenever there's conversations on green hydrogen, there would always be two opposing views on it. People will say there's no existing demand, but you will see that there's 95 million tons of hydrogen produced annually as of 2020. And then, of course, the pro-hydrogen, green hydrogen folks would be arguing that, based on forecasts, and if there's carbon pricing introduced in demand centers like Southeast Asia, in Japan, or in Europe, then we will see a tripling or quadrupling of demand over the next 10, 20 years. So right now, it is not cost competitive. Green hydrogen is not cost competitive. It's the price level, a kilo is about 7.5, between 3 and 7.5, and that's still 2 to 3 times higher than the price of gray hydrogen, or even blue hydrogen. But the expectation is that, under the assumption that there will be a government investment or support in terms of electrolyzer capacity, and there will be a bigger scale of projects, the expectation is for the cost gap to reduce over the next 7 years in 2030, and further on that it will reach parity with gray hydrogen by 2050. Of course, there's a lot of assumptions surrounding this type of forecasts, but basically the future, the outlook is hinges on the expectation and on these assumptions that will drive the cost of hydrogen to a competitive level. This basically shows us so there's over 1,000 or close to 2,000 hydrogen projects that have been announced globally. Some of them have indicated whether they are going to use membrane or alkaline electrolyzers, and have that in this chart. And then, of course, as far as most projects are concerned, the main derivative product that's being considered would be ammonia. Key market drivers. This is well, if you're here today, then I'm sure you've seen this many times over. The need to find alternative revenue source for the hydrocarbons exporting countries in the region is driving this massive interest in building an alternative revenue source in light of the long-term expected decline in fossil fuels demand. Secondly, you have high solar irrigation levels in the region. Combine that with a plentiful, flat, and barren land. There's some research that says just 20% of the land in Saudi Arabia can meet the hydrogen demand by 2050, for instance. And as I've mentioned earlier, falling solar energy production costs, although there has been some slight increases over the past 2 years due to the COVID-19 impact on the supply chain for solar PV modules, it's still lower. You will be challenged to find any place where they can produce renewable energy much cheaper than we produce it here in the GCC. Growing global demand for hydrogen, we've covered that earlier. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has basically highlighted the difficulty of being dependent on one single supply or a major supplier of gas, for instance. And then there's first mover advantage in terms of policy commitments to net zero. You have 3 or 4 of the Middle East and North Africa countries, or even more, basically saying they want to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050 or 2060. And then there's, of course, in terms of blue hydrogen, there's a large downstream sector that already has the infrastructure and experience to deal with this fuel. Okay, now for the policies and strategies. I think Morocco was the first to have come up with a National Hydrogen Commission in 2019. They have a green hydrogen roadmap developed in 2021 ahead of the rest of the countries in the Middle East and North Africa. I believe its close proximity to Europe is a key advantage for Morocco. We have here, oh, by the way, please feel free to send in questions if you have any. We will try to accommodate those questions during the presentation or in the last 15 minutes of the presentation. And normally the first question would be if the slides will be shared. Yes, we will be sharing those slides with you. If you already don't have it in your inbox, then it's on its way. So we move to Egypt. So Egypt has the largest pipeline of green hydrogen projects across the Mena states. It's around 2,000 projects. Half of them were announced during the COP27 climate summit in Sharm el-Sheikh last November. They have a national council for green hydrogen established this year. They're aiming at a lowest cost of 1.7 per kilogram and capture 8% of global hydrogen market by 2050. This has not yet been I have not seen an official document indicating this, but the Minister of Energy basically said they're planning tax exemptions ranging from 33 to 55% for green hydrogen projects, as well as dedicated funding facilities for these projects and exemption from value-added taxes on production and essential substances. Jordan, of course, they just recently said that they have completed their national hydrogen strategy. As I said earlier, they are planning to announce 5 MOUs during the COP28 here in Dubai. Abu Dhabi, so the UAE, for instance, let's start with the UAE first. The Ministry of Infrastructure basically approved, or the cabinet has approved the UAE hydrogen strategy in July, and they're looking at 1.4 million tons per year of hydrogen production by 2031. Consisting of 1 MTPA of green hydrogen and 0.4 MTPA of blue hydrogen. They also, very importantly, looking at local growing demand for low carbon hydrogen to reach 2.7 million tons a year by 2031. So much awaited is the Abu Dhabi Department of Energy hydrogen policy. It's been reviewed. I think it's just awaiting a final approval from the government stakeholder. It will cover the production, trading, and supply of green hydrogen and other regulations to enable low carbon hydrogen supply chain to flourish. They're looking at enabling hydrogen valleys, among others. And I've recently spoken with a key official from the Department of Energy who said that developers who will set up a green hydrogen project in Abu Dhabi will have an option to source power either from the grid or from or come up with an integrated green hydrogen project, pretty much like what we've seen in Saudi Arabia or Oman, where they will build their own solar PV plants. Oman is coming fast and furious, if you will, in terms of project announcements. Net zero by 2050. They're looking at hydrogen-based steel production to account about 8% of their output. Full electrification of light vehicles, among others. Essentially, they're looking at 1.25 million tons a year of green hydrogen production by 2030. Saudi Arabia, official H2 policies under development. They do have a national hydrogen strategy looking at 2.9 MTPA by 2030 and about 12 MTPA of green hydrogen and 6 MTPA of blue hydrogen by 2035. So they plan to develop in parallel blue and green hydrogen, as well as CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. I guess that's what we know about these key countries. We will now look at the distribution of projects across the Mena countries. This is from D2, the Desert Energy. GCC states and Egypt seek to take advantage of cheap renewable energy to enhance their position as global energy exporters. For countries like Morocco and Jordan, they're looking to export clean energy as well and to reduce their imports. You have about Egypt accounting for about 24 of these 70 known hydrogen projects in the MENA region. The number that you will see, so these for countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, would also have the number of blue hydrogen projects that have been announced or awarded. Now, based on MEED data, so we've been tracking the hydrogen projects being announced across these countries over the past few years. Based on MEED's data, there are at least 70 known planned green hydrogen projects across the MENA region, mainly in those 6 countries. The estimated budgets for these projects exceed 250 billion, which is twice the estimates made a year earlier, before COP27 in Egypt. So there's a massive interest, major project announcements. Of course, what needs to be said is that only 3 of these projects are under construction as we speak today. So there's the Neom green hydrogen project in Saudi Arabia, the Fertiglobe Scatec Orascom electrolyzer plant in Suez Canal in Egypt, which produced the green ammonia that I mentioned earlier, as well as a very small green hydrogen plant in Morocco. 6 are in the pre-feed or feed stage, and most of them are basically saying they're waiting for the governments to release or issue their policies and regulations before they can go ahead. At the same time, most of the gigascale projects, just like the 25 gigawatt green energy Oman project, will be staged in phases. So, and some of these projects, they tell us, the people I speak to tell me that it will take at least another 2 years for them to reach financial investment decision, and about 7 years, especially for the projects in Oman. I think that's the amount of time that they are required to be able to develop an integrated green hydrogen and ammonia facility from the land concessions that they've won. There's pre-development work ongoing, which is one of the reasons as well that these projects will take time to come to fruition or start construction. In addition, of course, to the difficulty of negotiating offtakes for these projects. In terms of value, developers and investors, as I said earlier, waiting for government support in terms of regulations and incentives. The development of supply chain is being worked on. Earlier this year, we reported that Mubadala and Strata, which is subsidiary of Mubadala, will be forming a joint venture with John Cockerell Hydrogen to build an electrolyzer power plant in Abu Dhabi. Right. So we'll start with Saudi Arabia in terms of its plans, in terms of plant projects. So the Public Investment Fund, the sovereign wealth vehicle of Saudi Arabia, is playing a key role here. And we'll be talking about Neom green hydrogen project in a bit. But as of now, let's talk about this. There are 3 projects on the pipeline. The MOUs have been signed. The most advanced, it seems, because it already has a timeline. It has defined the target production capacities. The Team South Korea Green Hydrogen Project. You've got POSCO, KEPCO, Korea Southern Power Company, Korea National Oil Corporation, and Samsung C&T in a consortium to develop this project with a potential location in Yanbu Industrial City. The budget is expected to be around $6.5 billion. And it's expected to be completed by 2029. The ammonia production capacity when completed is about 1.2 million tons a year. There are other 2 projects Japan's Marubeni signed an MOU with the PIF earlier this year. And according to some of the sources that I've been speaking to, I think the negotiations and discussions with the PIF are proceeding, and there are indications that they might expand the derivative being planned from ammonia to include sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, and green steel. There's also in July an MOU signed between PIF and ENGIE. We don't know much about this project, but maybe we will soon if there's any development that we can share. Right, so Neom Green Hydrogen Project. This is again, there was a lot of there are lots of pessimism and cynicism when this project was announced in 2020. So you've got it's a massive project. It was 6.5 billion. It was announced in 2020, and at the time of financial close in May this year, the cost went up to $8.4 billion. The Neom Green Hydrogen company is equally owned by Neom, Amea Power, and US Air Products. The main EPC contractor is Air Products. Currently, the construction is underway. Last week, a few days back, we've seen the delivery of the first wind turbines that will be built for the wind farm to power the electrolysis plant in Oxagon, the industrial city in Neom. The target ammonia capacity when it's completed in 2026 is 1.2 million tons a year. It will require an electrolyzer capacity of 2 gigawatts. So that's about 100 units of 20 megawatt electrolyzer to be supplied by ThyssenKrupp, I believe, of Germany. I'd like to spend a minute or two talking about this project, mainly because it's providing insight in terms of how future projects can be structured to make them bankable. So we've got so the 8.4 billion project, 6.5 billion, about 6.1 billion will be financed. 2.75 billion of that will be from the National Infrastructure Fund and SIDF of Saudi Arabia, and the remaining 3.6 billion will be funded by a consortium of 21 banks that include HSBC, Standard Chartered, Natixis, Mizuho, KfW of Germany, and you have local banks involved in the project as well. So this is our estimate in terms of the cost by component. This may not apply to all projects. This is just a rough estimate internally in terms of how the 8.4 billion capex is distributed between the various components of the project. The largest, of course, will be accounted for by the renewable energy plants and the battery energy storage, as well as the 190-kilometer transmission network, which India's LNT will be building. The other units, like the civil works, the air separation units, and electrolyzer plants will account for a smaller portion compared to the renewable energy plants. Right. A few interesting questions here, but I think I'll leave it to the end of the presentation. Just bear with me for a few more minutes. Oman, of course, we're now moving to Oman. So Oman, as I mentioned, aims to produce 1 to 1.25 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. So they formed Hydrom, which has been the one conducting the land auctions for the green hydrogen projects in the Sultanate. So it is fully owned by the Energy Development Oman and regulated by the Ministry of Energy and Minerals. It has signed, apart from awarding the land concessions for those 3 projects, it has formed a collaboration in green hydrogen pipeline development with OQ Gas Networks. So that's a good indicator in terms of the plan beyond setting up the green hydrogen plants. in terms of and transporting them domestically or in exporting them. Energy development, Oman and Siemens Energy have signed a collaboration in hydrogen technology, innovation, and expertise. The sources that we're talking to basically tell me that Hydrom will eventually be acquiring equity stake of between 5 and 20% in the green hydrogen projects that will be set up in Oman in exchange for providing the desalinated water and hydrogen pipelines as part of the agreement. These are the projects that have been awarded in Oman. Well, is the land so on your right are the land concession agreements that were awarded in June. So you've got Amna, the South Korea team led by POSCO and ENGIE, and High Port Coordination Company, which is led by Deme Group in Belgium, having won those land concession agreements in Duqm. So the scale of these projects, they are massive projects. The POSCO and ENGIE project aim to build ammonia production capacity of about 1.2 million tons a year when it's completed. I do understand that they're aiming for an FID within 2 years, and all these 3 projects have 7 years to be able to complete their project. On the left hand, you have the legacy projects. I think these are projects whose MOU or MOU were signed before the framework agreement was set up by Hydrom, so they call them legacy projects. So you've got the BP projects included in here, as well as the Green Energy Oman project, among others. Green Energy Oman is probably the largest planned green hydrogen project in the GCC. The renewable energy capacity that they are looking at is about 25 gigawatts. So based on some calculations, it will be around $28 billion. It will be developed by phases, with the first phase expected to be, FID for the first phase, I think, is expected by 2026, if I'm not wrong, and the full completion when they will be able to reach their envisaged capacity of 9.9 million tons of ammonia will be by 2038. We've got Intercontinental Energy, Kuwait, Enertech, Shell, as part of the consortium developing this project. DNV work with them, and Worley as well, and it's the largest project that has been announced in the region. Sorry, let me go back. Right, and next we have Egypt, of course, as we mentioned earlier. It's the largest market in the MENA region in terms of the pipeline of green hydrogen projects that are being planned. The largest of these projects is the one planned by Acme Group in India. There's the projects that you would probably want to watch out for are those that are in the pre-feed or feed stages. You have the East Port Said Green Hydrogen Project, called RA. I'm going to do that in a minute. Right. So this is the project that is now in the pre-feed stage. It aims to produce ammonia with a 2 million capacity when completed in 2028. The project sponsor is Dai Infrastruktur of Germany. It has awarded the EPC contract for the first 2 gigawatt solar PV plant that will cater to the electrolysis plant to China Power Engineering Consulting Group. Freepan Holding is one of the off-takers. It's a UK-based company that has signed a 10-year offtake agreement for the ammonia that will be produced at this facility when completed. Siemens Energy again will supply the electrolyzers for the project, and KBR will provide the ammonia technology. Right. Another project that is moving ahead is the Deme Group, Roscar Group Green Hydrogen Project in Marsa Matruh in Egypt. It will be developed in 3 phases. They are working on the 3 billion first phase of the project, which will have a capacity of 800 megawatts solar and a 700 megawatt wind farm capacity. The port of Antwerp. So the stakeholders of this project, in addition to Deme Group, is Fluxys, the port of Antwerp in Belgium, and Egypt's Garabli. So the plan is for the low carbon fuel derived from the plant to be shipped to the port of Antwerp, where it will be used as a feedstock for a chemicals industry. The result of the initial feasibility study for this project has been submitted. It was done by Roland Berger and it was submitted to the Egyptian government in 2021. Right. In terms of the challenges, there are many projects. It depends on who you're talking to. So if you're here, I would assume that you're either looking at what possibilities would this emerging market have for my business, or how will it impact my business? How can I benefit? And I would also like to assume that some of you are here because you're anti-hydrogen. There's a lot of lobbying for and against hydrogen, and we start with the first project, which is the difficulty of getting the projects over the line. So only 3 projects have reached the construction stage, and only one is in the bidding stage. That is the Fertiglobe Ruwais electrolyzer plant being built in Abu Dhabi. So that's I think that's 200 megawatts, but I think it's the first 100 megawatt that they have tendered in terms of the main civil works. And that is expected as being developed by Masdar and NG. And I think the financial investment decision is likely to be announced during or before COP28. Feasibility studies and development works will take some time. The other one is, I think it's universally accepted, as we've shown in my first few slides, that the current price is not economically viable. It's 3 times the price of blue and gray hydrogen. And at the heart of this argument or debate, of course, is the need to revisit the subsidies for blue hydrogen, because as someone has told me recently, how can gray ammonia compete with blue ammonia if the gas is a natural gas used for blue ammonia is being bought at 20% of the market price? So clearly there need to be regulations and policies and standards that have to be put in place in order for these projects to go ahead, for most of these projects to go ahead. One of the key challenges as well is, before I go to that next risk, which is the offtake risk, it is very important to note that Neom Green Hydrogen Project is providing a beacon in terms of the confusion in terms of the market. So it's helping out future projects in terms of looking at the project structure to make them more bankable in the future. Of course, there are drawbacks. We also know that the second planned green hydrogen project by Air Products and Aqua Power in Oman, which is similar in size, about 8.5 billion, has been put on hold. And I think basically the reason, and I could be wrong, of course, the reason behind that is that they want to get this up and running first before they proceed with the next project. Offtake risk is being tackled by aggregation or middlemen buying green hydrogen for many clients. So this is a major hurdle because it's about, if you've seen the forecast for price, you will be committing to a project over 30 years at the price agreed today. And so therefore you need a lot of work that need to be done in terms of safeguarding those investments. Technology risk is being addressed by working with industry partners, as well as the use of proven technologies such as alkaline electrolyzers. The global electrolyzer manufacturing capacity, as well as individual electrolyzer capacity, need to be need to scale. So for instance, again, we go back to the Neom green hydrogen project. Today, as far as I know, the maximum capacity for an electrolyzer unit is about 20 megawatts. So you need 100 of those units to come up with 2 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity. And there are many implications in terms of the operation and management of 100 units of those electrolyzers. And so there needs to be a scaling of manufacturing of this of electrolyzer capacity, because right now the 5 gigawatt capacity can only meet the demand for very few of the thousands of projects that are being planned. And in addition, there has got to be investments to be made, not only to expand the capacity of electrolyzers, but also to improve their efficiency. So you have European, in US electrolyzers in the market, as well as Chinese suppliers, and both have room in order to improve their efficiency, in order to minimize the loss of electricity in the process of electrolysis. That's another major issue, by the way. The massive electricity required to green hydrogen is one of the key objections to the development of green hydrogen, because you would need so much electricity in order to create this non-carbon emitting fuel source. 7, there has been limited impetus to utilize future output locally. Of course, we didn't show you the data that we have for Morocco, which is looking at, of course, given the massive fertilizer ammonia production industry in Morocco, so local offtake is also a priority there. But in general, there's got to be carbon price. There's got to be an input from the government to enable local offtake agreements for green hydrogen. As I said earlier, there's a lot of lobbying for and against green hydrogen. I am fortunate to be in the front, to have a front row seat listening to people who wholeheartedly think this is the future, and this is the silver bullet to address decarbonization and energy transition, as well as people who say this will never work. So I think there's unanimous agreement that green or blue hydrogen will play a strong role in decarbonizing hard-to-abate industries. The debate and argument is raging in terms of the role of green hydrogen in mobility, among others. But I think it's all contingent on how well the sector can bring the price down to a competitive level before it takes off. Hydrogen represents a project opportunity and for companies in the region. So if you are looking to offer solutions or services, you have PIF, Kezad. We didn't talk much about the UAE, but yes, there's about 12 renewable hydrogen projects that are being planned in the UAE, including the Triolin 360 project led by the South Koreans. In Kezad, there's Taka, Emirates Steel planning green hydrogen, green steel as well, and there's Bruges planning a green hydrogen plant. Okay, key investors, as we have shown, you have got Total Energies, BP, Shell. They're in UAE and Oman, Aqua Power, Marubeni, Engie, POSCO. Your classic IPP developers are there. Steel companies, and you have investment companies like Actis, Amarenco, and CIP, all having signed MOUs to develop green hydrogen projects in those countries. Right, I think now it's time for some questions. We've got 20 minutes left. I'll try to see if we can accommodate some questions. Do you have any demand quantity projection for the hydrogen fuel dispensing stations? No, we don't have that, unfortunately, at the moment. But we will look into this section of the green hydrogen sector going forward. Do you think that CCUS will have more edge over producing blue and green hydrogen as it is more easier technology? I'm not sure if it's easier, but the fact that in the GCC region, for instance, in some of the countries, they already have experience and the infrastructure, and they're continuing to invest in blue hydrogen, um, um, that they can, and they've basically made that clear. Saudi Arabia, for instance, in its um, um, low carbon hydrogen strategy, stated that they will be developing CCUS alongside green hydrogen. So to answer, is blue hydrogen easier? It might be more convenient. It might be easier, yes, because they already have the expertise. Whereas in terms of green hydrogen, as I mentioned, there's a lot of input that's needed in order to realize its promise of additional revenue and profitability eventually. How does the expected hydrogen production in MENA compare with the rest of the world? I don't have that data, but we do know that the largest green hydrogen and ammonia production facilities are being planned here in the region, mainly due to two factors, which is, well, three factors: the high irrigation levels, the scale of projects that are being planned, as well as the proximity of the region. So it's equidistant between Southeast Asia. You have Japan and South Korea, basically uh, waiting to get their hands on low carbon hydrogen, and Europe, which is entering a phase where they will be introducing carbon pricing aggressively, which will make the price of fossil fuels higher than it is. So these are opportunities. I don't have the aggregate. I will try to do that. I don't have the aggregate green hydrogen production capacity, but I think that's easy to extract based on the information that we have internally, and perhaps the report will be able to provide that as well. So in terms of the scale of projects, I think, and also the other thing going for those for the green hydrogen projects being planned here would be the availability of expansive land in the region, barren flat land where you can build a solar PV capacity in such scale that is hard to equal, maybe except in the US and certain parts of China. How confident are you in the 2030 target set in Oman? I don't. I'll decline to answer that question. But I will have a better answer. There is a green hydrogen summit happening in Oman on the 13th and 14th of December, and I will be there. I can't really provide you an answer until I'm able to speak with the main stakeholders of these projects. The fact that they have set up a national hydrogen strategy, they've come up with a structure, it shows their intention to develop a green hydrogen sector there. And of course, you can also see the gravitas of the companies that have signed up to develop a project there. So there's a port, there's attractive free zone incentives waiting for projects. So it might just take off. What is a yellow project? That is, I think, project that's fully powered by solar. How about the reality about Egypt projects? There are many, but I met several people who visited Egypt, said they have financial problems. Of course, Egypt has financial problems, and as all these projects and many others globally, and not just green hydrogen projects, most renewable energy, CCUS, and other forms of these energy transition projects will require trillions of dollars in investments over the next 20 years. And the government has don't have the capacity to fund these projects. So the onus is on the private sector, private funding to to um, to bankroll 70 to 80% of all these planned investments. Sorry. Okay, there's a confusion on the project in Morocco. The one that I've shown today, which is okay, so it's not in this slide. So there's some projects in Morocco. Not the only project that is under construction is a very small project, 2 megawatts. The large project, which is about $16 billion, the Amun project by CWP Global, is being developed by the Serbia based company CWP Global and another partner. They recently appointed Bechtel to provide support for developing that project in Morocco. There's another project which will be located in Dakhla, being built by um, uh, sorry the company. I mean, we will provide you the name of the project when we're able. But yes, there are at least 6 or 9 projects in Morocco that we are aware of as of today. Is the 14% hydrogen plant cost portion in Neom project inclusive of only electrolyzer system or the added scope covering the hydrogen island? I am not entirely sure, but I would be inclined to say that the civil works scope will cover the hydrogen island, and that uh, the electrolysis plant, which is 14%, would be. But let me go back and check that number for you. Um, and I could email you the answer. Again, those are estimates based on what industry sources and experts have told us. It is probably not 100% accurate, but I presented the data just for the interest of providing an indicative data in terms of how an integrated green hydrogen and ammonia production facility, in terms of how the capex is distributed across those various components of that project, of a project. The Neom Green Hydrogen project, the capacity is 400 megawatts. I'm not sure if they will expand it in the future, but as of today, from what we know, the renewable energy capacity is about 4,300 megawatts of solar and wind energy combined, plus 400 megawatts of battery energy storage system. Which entity in Egypt does manage the hydrogen projects? I am not aware of an entity like Hydrom in Oman. I don't know that there is a counterpart in Egypt. I know that the EEHC and the Suez Canal, the different free zones seem to be part of the projects, and every MOU seems to have the sovereign fund of Egypt in it. So I would expect that the sovereign fund of Egypt will have a hand, pretty much like PIF in Saudi Arabia, in terms of developing these assets if they do go move forward. Um, Similar slides on the UAE market. Yes, we are aware of the Crystal project. That is the project between Masdar and NG, which is under development and is expected to reach FID if it hasn't. That will be the first project, green hydrogen project, to go under construction in the UAE. What is my view on Morocco's hydrogen landscape and projects likelihood? Um, they have intention. They have the government has signed um, agreements with several EU governments. I think with the Netherlands, Germany, and Portugal over a period of years. does seem appear to be slower compared to the GCC projects, even if it started early. But again, it has every incentive. Morocco has every incentive to push ahead with green hydrogen projects, namely because number one is its close proximity to Europe, which is the main one of the main demand centers. Number two, it needs it for its local fertilizer industry as well. And it can reduce its energy imports. What is the prospect of self-generation by Mena? There's a huge impetus for developing SAF. There's ADNOC signing several agreements with Airbus, among others, and there is the two planned hydrogen projects. There's Masdar and ADNOC planning an SAF green hydrogen based project in Abu Dhabi, and there's this plant being planned by Marubeni, Siemens Energy, with Total, also in Abu Dhabi, that is exploring SAF. And as I mentioned, the third PIF project that is under study is also looking at SAF. So, and recently I've had the privilege, I managed to speak with Rolls-Royce, for instance, who said that their jet engines are now certified to be able to run safely on 50% SAF, and they're working on getting that to 100%. So there's a huge, I think, the huge interest on SAF is not baseless. I think it's happening mainly because the aviation sector is basically one of the heaviest polluters or carbon emitting industries globally. Yeah. Are you aware of projects whose product is to be utilized domestically? As I said, Morocco includes, in its hydrogen strategy, includes the consumption of ammonia, of green ammonia for their local industries. And if you've seen one of the slides where the UAE hydrogen strategy also is looking at developing a demand for low carbon hydrogen. How there are many other questions. Okay, the lack of standardization. There's a very good feedback from one of you, which is the lack of standardization in electrolysis, and that's something that we should all bear in mind, I believe. Hold on, we've got 5 more minutes. Okay, let me read this feedback. One of the biggest challenges to driving down the cost of electrolyzer equipment and associated rectifier technologies is the lack of standardization. Each manufacturer is determining their own voltage and current levels to operate, and so suppliers will find it difficult to develop an optimized solution to cover a wide range of electrolyzer technologies. Is there any discussion at government levels to try and standardize the technologies to be used? Like any emerging market, I think there's a wide range of discussions being held with government and stakeholders in terms of unifying and certifying equipment as well as the end product. So I think there's a major concern in terms of certifying green energy or green ammonia from the origin to the point of consumption. For instance, for the project that aims to convert green hydrogen into ammonia and then shipped to the demand center, which is then cracked back into hydrogen for supply for mobility purposes. There are many elements in that supply chain that need to be certified in order to make sure that the end product is really green. So there's an awful lot of discussions that are being held in terms of how to come up with a universally agreed definition for green hydrogen. the name of projects under construction currently, so that's the Neom Green Hydrogen Project. The Fertiglobe Scatec, and it's called Green Egypt. That's the second plant, electrolyzer plant in Egypt, that is now that's now under construction. And there's another small plant in Morocco that is currently under construction. Are you seeing that the financiers are keen on financing these types of projects? There is a the fact that the Neom Green Hydrogen project in Saudi Arabia reached financial close is a milestone, and it has improved the comfort level of banks in terms of lending to this type of giga-scale projects. Having said that, though, from my conversations with bankers, they still have there's still a lot that need to be addressed in future projects. As I've mentioned, the efficiency of electrolyzers, the O&M, and the offtake. So those are key concerns, as well as the regulations. I mean, I think the Neom Green Hydrogen project is an outlier because it was financed, it started construction before a clear policy is put in place. But for many, they will be waiting for regulations and policies to be in place before they would sign up and lend to these projects. But certainly, I think the Neom Green Hydrogen project set a line where the lenders started looking at it more seriously and considering and coming up with unique products that would be suitable to these projects that are at face value not bankable at the moment. I think that's there are many more projects, there are many more questions being asked, and I wish I have the time to address all of those questions. Long-term perspective for blue hydrogen exportation for MENA countries, that's not covered by the scope because I'm looking at green hydrogen mainly. Do you have a consolidated regulatory requirement on hydrogen projects for each of the Middle East countries? We don't have that. I'm afraid no one might have that. It's a work in progress. It's moving very quickly though. There are a lot of consultancy happening in terms of national green hydrogen strategies and policies. So again, one of the most awaited is the Abu Dhabi green hydrogen policy, which should be out in a couple of days. Or before COP28. Okay, right. Well, I think that's all that we have time for. There are many questions here, and I have to sort out the questions, and I promise to provide some answers if I can for some of those questions. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us today. Do send those questions. If you have more questions, I've got my email address in this presentation. Do reach out if you have any questions. And yes, we will be in touch and hope to see you soon in another webinar. Thank you.